Well, hi, I'm Hugh Halter. I'm one of the authors of Brave Cities, and we hope you're enjoying the processing that you're having, either with the book or some of the content here. On this very first video, we just wanted to really talk about our stories. A lot of times when people hear, they read about what has happened in a little town called Alton, Illinois, they think that you have to be very creative and have all sorts of money ahead of time and stuff like that. But I want you to know that I've never actually felt like I had any creative ability to think of something new or think of something fresh. There was just something that began to happen, and I want you to kind of key in on that part of the story. It began really 25 years ago, or even longer. My son Ryan had very severe epilepsy, and he was having sometimes 20 grand mal seizures every day, and so a lot of our life was centered around just sort of taking care of him. And when he was mid-20s, we found an assisted living center for him in this little town called Alton, Illinois. And we wanted him to be happy, so we sent him out there. It's the first time Cheryl and I had ever had time to just like be married together and not have his disability always kind of in front of our face and that type of thing. And so as Ryan was out there, we would fly into St. Louis Airport, we would drive across the Mississippi River, and we would visit this little town that used to be about 100,000 people, and we found out it was down to about 30,000 people. What we noticed every time we would go to visit him was all the boarded up commercial spaces, a lot of really rough residential areas. And when I knew it was really kind of messed up was when I said, hey, babe, let's go out and get a cup of coffee. And we couldn't find a coffee shop anywhere in town. And so we just started to go, okay, there's something not right here. And eventually, on about the 10th pass through town, my wife and I were having a conversation with a waitress at a kind of an Italian bar. And I asked her, I said, what do young people do in Alton? And she said, well, most of my friends just do drugs. And she kind of laughed a little bit, but I actually asked her, I said, has that been a struggle for you as well? And she said, yeah, but I'm doing really well right now. So we immediately fell in love with her. We tipped her a couple $100 on a pizza. And walking out of there, my wife said, hey, why don't we just sell our place in Denver and move here and see if we can do something to help this town out? That's kind of how she said it. So we got in a little bit of an argument on the sidewalk because I didn't really want to leave Denver and move to this little town, little Mississippi town. And long story short, we had a big family talk. My two daughters who were adults, they were just getting married or engaged, and met with all of them together. And we decided that we would all go out as a family, three couples. And we would move to this place where we didn't know anybody. We didn't really know what we wanted to do, but we all had a sense that we just wanted to do something to help the town out. And so we showed up and we bought my daughter, Allie, a crack house for about $12,000. And we put her on a pretty rough little corner. She actually said, hey, put me in a rough part of town. So that was pretty much most of the town, but we renovated this old house, and Matthew and Allie began to live there. We bought my other daughter a house about 3 blocks away from that, and then we were right in between them, all right downtown Alton. And we didn't really know what to do. We were just there. And so I would get up in the morning, and oftentimes I would walk around and just kind of get to know the neighborhood. Most of the time, always just talking with the Lord. Like, I'd meet some neighbors, and then I would just keep asking him, like, what do you want us to do here? And I would say things like, hey, we only want to do what we see you doing. At that point in my life, I didn't want to just make stuff up. I also didn't want to just work hard doing stuff that wouldn't work. And we really felt like we just wanted to help the town. So I would keep telling him, sometimes I would say, Lord, would you just put some bread on the trail? And he knew what I was saying. I was like, if you'll just give me like the marching orders for the day, that will be enough. And then, maybe over time we'll figure out what you're doing. And on a particular day, I decided to go buy a little kind of burned out gas station, and we thought we'll start our own coffee shop. And I made an offer on this building, and the gentleman didn't take my offer. And so I went home and I told Cheryl, and she said, well, why don't let's just take some more time to just pray, and maybe let's just take a year and not do anything. Let's just ask the Lord. And I agreed with her. And then 2 hours later, a gentleman called me that I barely knew, and he said, "Hey, Hugh, do you have time to take a ride around town?" And so I said, "Sure, I got nothing else to do." And so me and a guy named John, we drove around Alton, and we were looking at a lot of buildings that he had begun to purchase around town. All of them were boarded up. All of them mostly were out of commission for about 60 years. And one of them was this old federal post office. And he pulled up in front of that and he said, "Hey, what do you think about this building?" It was very beautiful. It was right across the street from City Hall and right in the center of downtown, about 3 blocks off the Mississippi River. Very beautiful, but everything was boarded up. And he said, "What do you think?" I said, it's a very beautiful building. Looks like it would have been the crown jewel of downtown." And he said, "Yeah, that's why I bought it about a year and a half ago." And he said, "So you like it?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I think you're supposed to have it, and I think you're gonna know what to do to help our town." And I just remember at that moment, I kind of had a sense, God was putting bread on the trail for us. And so we received the building from him at no cost. And within about 6 weeks, some friends had called and said, "Hey, whenever God tells you what to do, we would like to help financially." And so all of a sudden, money started to come together. We had the building. We had no particular idea, and we just began to walk through. And I think it was my youngest daughter, McKenna, said, "Dad, let's just make the living room for our city." And so eventually, this building opened up about 10, 12 months later, called Post Commons, and we set up a nonprofit. We call that the Lantern Network, and our stated purpose was to incubate good works in our city. And so we started our own coffee shop, cafe, coffee roasting company. Eventually people started to ask us if they could do their weddings, and so we became one of the premier event spaces in town. So we do almost a wedding every weekend or some type of party or gathering. Then we started to notice that people did a lot of their work in our building. We could seat about 300 people. And so we just started to notice that people that may not be able to afford office space or whatever, they could actually work and do their jobs out of our building. And so eventually a co-working space was born. And subsequently, kind of in the first 5 years, we had about 12 small businesses that got started, a couple different nonprofits. We were able to take some of the monies that we were earning from just the normal business that we were doing, and we helped start what we would call Justice Works, maybe helping with what we call a warming center that helps homeless folks in the wintertime, or a basketball league for primarily fatherless kids. Just anything that we saw that needed to happen just began to happen. And then eventually people found out that we were there to help them start things that would matter to them. And so we were able to do a lot of pop-ups for other businesses, or just coach people into how to start their own businesses. So I just wanted you to kind of hear our story. It's, obviously it stretched out over a much longer time, but the simple story that I want you to remember is that you don't have to be the most creative person. We serve a God that's the most creative force in the universe. He knows exactly what to do to unlock or sort of loosen up the spiritual condition of your city. And so really the only thing I hope that you hear is that you would walk and pray and ask the Lord to put bread on the trail, and trust Him that if He's going to give you something, He's also going to give you the resources to do it. He's going to give you the people to do it. And hopefully in any city that you live in, or any little small area of maybe even a larger city that you live in, there's something very creative that you can do. And that's the spirit of Brave Cities. It's what God wants to do in your city. And you just get to be along for the ride. So hopefully you're encouraged by that.